Because one of the things that I've come to understand is that there's nobody in Washington who's going to wake up someday and go, America's going to be bicycle friendly. You're not going to get it from the president. Even when the Secretary of Transportation says it, it takes something to make that happen. Somebody talked earlier that so much of the money comes from the state level, it comes from the local level. One of the things I've really come to understand is we live in a democracy. It's government of the people, by the people, and for the people who show up. That's it. All right? If those people who show up want bicycle facilities, you will get bicycle facilities. That's the way it happens. All right? Now, what are 4 ways you can make a difference? Ride your bike, especially for trips under 2 miles. Be an example. Last year I said, I'm going to be an example. I live 22.4 miles away from the office. I'm not in town a whole lot. And I said, I'm going to make 30 trips to work and back. That's a round tripper, all right? This year I did 37. That was pretty good, all right? Around town I set my little goal, and I have my little commuter bike, and I have my odometer on it. So every year I set a little goal as to how often I want to ride by bike. The more people who ride by bike, there's a critical mass there. Other people start riding by bike. Other people want bicycle facilities. If we get everybody in this room to ride their bike more, it makes a big difference. It all starts with you. All right, the second thing is to have a plan. And Madison's supposed to be this great bicycle-friendly city. And I go to the Bike Summit in Washington every year, and at a number of those summits I'd talk and give my advice. And then I started to hear about great things New York was doing. And I was like, wow, maybe we need to pick up the pace here in Madison. And so we went back to Madison, sat down with the mayor, and started to make some changes. One of the first things we did is we put together a plan. And right up here on this plan, there's 64 moves on the checkers board to make Madison a bicycle-friendly community. And we know exactly what those 64 moves are. There is a plan, and it makes a big difference. The 64 moves in Madison total $60 million. That's what it totals to make Madison a world-class bicycle city. Madison is currently looking at a new interchange outside of Verona, on the far west side of Madison. Does anybody want to guess how much one lousy interchange costs? $130 million. I will give you this envelope, a new interchange in Verona for $130 million, or I will give you a world-class bicycle city for half the price. Which envelope do you want? And Tim talked about it earlier, and there is going to be a large debate in this country over finances and over value. And there should be. This country is way into debt, and it's much worse than anybody in this room thinks it is. There are going to be some tough choices that are going to need to be made. But I will reiterate, bicycling is a cheap date, and it is the most environmentally friendly, but it is the most economically friendly way to spend money. It's a big deal. All right, the third thing is to get organized, and you're doing that here at the Bicycle Summit. Is getting organized makes a really big difference, and getting organized will pay off huge dividends for you, and I know this because of what we did in Wisconsin. I came back from that Washington at the National Bike Summit and got together with Chris Fortune and a couple other people. We said, we're going to have the first Wisconsin Bike Summit. And somebody said, great, let's do it next year. And I said, when would you like to do it next year? And they said, next April. I said, that's 14 months away. I said, how about if we do it in 6 weeks? So we did it in 6 weeks, all right? We had 400 people at the Bike Summit, and it was an amazing success. That's a photo from the Bike Summit. And we had some great progress in one bike summit. We passed complete streets legislation. Any time now in the state of Wisconsin you want to build a new road, bicycling and walking have to be considered in building that new road. We increased funding for bicycling at the state level by $5 million. Statewide Safe Routes to School program put together. Madison City European bike trip. We took business leaders in Madison. Chris Fortune did this. He took 10 people, the mayor, key people, developers, and he took them over to Holland for 7 days. Were you on that trip? No. 7 days, but then the volcano erupted and it turned into a 14-day trip. We always like to say the best people are good at plan A. I mean, plan B, because plan A never works, all right? And Tim talked about cyclovias. We did Ride the Drive in Madison. I think I have a photo of that. Do I? I do. I'll talk about that. And we did the Western Wisconsin Bike Summit, all right? One of the things that happened because of the State Bike Summit, all of a sudden people out in La Crosse, they got really excited about cycling. They had their own Western Wisconsin Bike Summit. I went out there, I spoke at the event. They had 100 people. La Crosse is putting together a whole plan. They have great mountain bike facilities. They're going to take it to a new level. Ride the Drive. Tim asked for how many people, how many Ride the Drives are there, cyclovias in Colorado, and it sounds like there's one. And if you get anything out of this talk this morning, one of the key points this afternoon is have a cyclovia in your town. It's a great event for the community. When we did it in Madison, Mayor Dave said it was the single best event he ever did. He got more feedback from Madisonians on Ride the Drive than any other event. The second thing that happens is when you get 60,000 people, we had 60,000 people come to Ride the Drive. We had 30,000 people come to the first one of the year, 60,000 come to the second one. When you get that amount of people out there, it shows every politician in town that people love to ride their bikes. It makes an amazing difference to get people on board. So it's not just to open up the city and have a great event for the citizens, which it is, it also really shows people, politicians, that people want bicycle facilities. It's a great thing. Fourth thing I just want to talk to you about is asking, all right? And I'm a big believer in asking. And I love to tell this story. I was a freshman at Boston University, and Tip O'Neill came to speak at BU, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm going to go see this. And so Tip O'Neill comes out on the stage, and he told a story about when he was 26 years old. And he ran for Congress at 26, and he was out there, and he lived in this apartment building across the hall from two nuns. And he was very good friends with the nuns, and he would leave early every morning to campaign, and he'd come back late every night, and you'd usually see the nuns, and they were great friends. And Tip worked hard in that campaign. Election day comes, votes are counted, Tip loses by one vote. True story. He's a little discouraged. Next morning he gets up, he's outside, there are the two nuns. Oh, Tip, we're so sorry that you lost. That's so sad. He goes, well, ladies, he goes, I really, really thank you for your concern, and I really appreciate your support, and thank you for voting for me. And there was silence. They say, Tip, we didn't vote for you. He says, you didn't vote for me? Why didn't you vote for me? And Tip said, you never asked. None said you never asked. All right? And so that was a real message in his life, was to always ask. So there I am. My mother is 78. All right? She still rides her bicycle. And I'm with my mother last week, and we're riding, And she says to me, she goes, you know what I am so upset. I said, Mom, why are you upset? And she says, they just repaved Beaver Lake Road and they didn't widen the lanes for bicyclists. To which I asked my mother, Mom, did you ask for Beaver Lake Road to be widened for cyclists? The answer was, no, I did not. And that is why it hasn't been done.